Hey YouTube, what is up? I was finally able to get my third alternative white dragon, so I figured I'd do a deck profile for you guys of my Blue Eyes White Dragon deck as it stands right now. There might be more changes coming in the future as the Dark Illusion releases and we get cards like Pots of Dupidity, Cupidity, or Desires, whatever you want to call it, because it has 50 goddamn names. But anyway, I run 2 Dragon Spirit of White, 3 Blue Eyes White Dragon, and 3 Alternative Dragon. You're not going to be able to play the deck really with any less than 3 of these. This card can be actually bumped down to 1 if you don't like it, but I actually love this card when it's in deck and when it's in graveyard. The reason I run 2 of them is because I never want to get it to hand. If I get it to hand, I usually ditch it with Melody of the Awakening Dragon, which if you don't know, if you have dead cards in hand and you have a Melody of the Awakening Dragon in hand, you literally just ditch the dead card, use Melody of the Awakening Dragon, add these 2 cards to your hand, and your hand instantly becomes live. I'll usually use that combo in tandem with Trade-In. I'd use Melody, ditch a card. If I have a card in hand like the White Stone of Legend, which I never want in my hand, that's why I only run 1 of them, you can ditch this to the graveyard, get a Blue Eyes from your deck to your hand with White Stone of Legend, then add 2 alternative dragons to your hand with Melody of the Awakening Dragon, and you have 2 alternative dragons for 2 different turns, which actually works out really well. Never want this card in my hand though. Like I said before, it's a trade-in target as soon as I get it to my hand, or I'll ditch it with Melody of the Awakening Dragon to add these 2. This card is absolute trash in your hand. You only want it in graveyard and in deck. Special summoning from hand is almost impossible. When this card's on field, you could tag out into the bigger Blue Eyes anytime as long as your opponent controls a monster. You can tag out whenever you want, so if your opponent declares an attack on this card, you can literally special summon Blue Eyes in defense position and they can't do anything. Or you can special summon an attack position if the monster has a lower attack, then they can't get over it. So it's a nice card to have on the field. It's good to have in graveyard because you can bring it back with cards like Silver Scry, and you can bring it back with cards like Return of the Dragon Lords. In hand, it's actually pretty useless. And now for the 1-star tuners, I play 1 White Stone of Legend because you never want it in hand. You only want to ditch it from your deck to the graveyard to get a Blue Eyes to hand, and that's pretty much it. The cool thing with this is though, if you use it and get it on the field more than once per turn, you can keep adding Blue Eyes. It's not a once per turn. So if you had it on field and used it for a Synchro Summon, it goes to the graveyard, you get a Blue Eyes to hand, and then you can use something like Soul Charge to bring it back onto the field, and then use another Synchro on top of that, and you basically just keep going and keep going and keep going. Then I play 3 White Stone of Ancients. It's also a card that I really don't like to have in hand, to be honest with you. It's better than White Stone of Legend, because when this goes to the graveyard, it actually special summons a Blue Eyes from my deck in the end phase, and then the next turn I can banish this from the graveyard to add a Blue Eyes from my graveyard to my hand. It's actually really useful. This basically just gets only Blue Eyes to hand. This gets Blue Eyes to hand from grave, and it special summons a Blue Eyes. So it's a good card. I'd rather open this first turn than this, but you know, I'd rather not open this at all, to be honest with you, and just ditch it on my own. I also play Sage with Eyes of Blue because it's probably the best Blue Eyes specific tuner in the deck. We also run Effect Veilers, but this card is absolutely broken. You normal summon it, you get to add another tuner to your hand. Pretty much you could add any tuner you want as long as it fulfills the qualifications. You could literally even add Effect Veiler to your hand by normal summoning him, and he has some really broken plays. You can normal summon him and have his effect go off and have a Blue Eyes monster on the field. You can guarantee that you're going to have a Crystal Wing, because all you'd have to do is normal summon Sage, activating his effect to add White Stone of Ancients to hand. Then what you do is you synchro with any Blue Eyes you have on the field, turn it into Spirit Dragon, and then you use Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon's effect to tag out into Ancient Fairy Dragon. Then you use Ancient Fairy Dragon's effect to special summon 1 monster level 4 or lower from your hand. You special summon White Stone of Ancients, and then you can guarantee that you synchro these 2 and make a Crystal Wing turn 1. So if you're playing a deck where Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon doesn't do much for you, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to have a turn 1 Crystal Wing to sit on. And then you could have something like a Vanity's Lock, or you could have Gozen matchup and just screw almost every deck in this format besides Water. And for the rest of the monsters that I play 2 Maxx C and 2 Effect Veiler. This deck absolutely shines with hand traps. For some reason, it's really good. I can't understand why I draw so broken when I get Maxx C off in this deck, but I do. And usually if I can guarantee 2 cards off of Maxx C, I can probably OTK the next turn. And if you draw something like Soul Charge, you absolutely wreck. So it's really good. I also play 3 Melody of the Awakening Dragon because you really can't get away with any less than this. This card is an instant Blue Eyes alternative special summon to your side of the field. You cannot downplay that enough. You get to pop any monster you have on your opponent's side of the field. If you have this card and any other card in your hand, you can guarantee that, which is really good. I like Dragon Shrine. I'm not, too keen on opening it first turn, but if I can't dump cards to the graveyard and I need to set up next turn, this card's great because I can send any Blue Eyes I want to the graveyard, and then after I send it to the graveyard, as long as I've sent Dragon Spirit of White or Blue Eyes White Dragon, because they're both counted as normal monsters in the graveyard, I get to send another card, and I can send White Stone of Legend to add a Blue Eyes to hand, or I can send White Stone of Ancients to special summon later in my turn, and then banish White Stone of Ancients to get cards to my hand the turn after that. So it's not too shabby. I also run 3 Trade-In. because sometimes you just brick unbelievably and the trade-in will save your life. It also puts cards in the graveyard to special summon them later, which is a play I like to do. I like to use Melody of the Awakening Dragon to add Blue Eyes White Dragon and Blue Eyes Alternative to my hand, and then what I do on top of that, I'll reveal Blue Eyes White Dragon to special summon Alternative, pop any of their monsters, activate trade-in, send this back, and then draw 2. And I basically got to special summon Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon for free, and then I go +2. I also run 1 Cards of Constance because I really don't like it when I draw the stones. They are pretty useless in hand, to be honest with you. They are way better in grave. So I can basically, even if I have Sage in hand when I open this card, I can normal summon Sage to add a stone to hand, ditch the stone, use Cards of Constance, draw 2, and then use the stone's effect in graveyard to either add Blue Eyes to hand or special summon a Blue Eyes from a deck in the end phase. Cards of Constance is great. I only run it at 1 though because you only run 4 targets for it, unlike Trade-in where you basically run 8. So I run more Trade-in because it's more likely that I'm going to draw Blue Eyes, and I can add Blue Eyes to hands a lot easier than I can add these cards to hand. I can only draw 4 of these cards, and then if I don't draw them, I need to draw a Sage to make this card live, and that's not good. I can pretty much add Blue Eyes White Dragon or a level 8 monster to my hand in this deck amazingly easy. I literally just use Dragon Shrine, send Whitestone, and I get a Blue Eyes White Dragon to hand. It's a lot harder to add the Dragon Tuners to hand, to be honest with you. And next up, I run 3 Silver's Cry, and I run 3 Return of the Dragon Lords. Now, some people I see running 2 Silver's Cry. I don't like that. I love to run this card at 3 because I can use it on my opponent's turn. Return of the Dragon Lords is my, my turn play. This card is great because it can revive any level 7 or 8 as well. So you can actually bring back Crystal Wing from the graveyard. You can bring back Ancient Fairy. You can bring back Black Rose or Michael. It's really, really good. Or if you have those cards on the field and you don't want them to get destroyed because you special summon them with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, you can just banish this card from your graveyard to protect them. This can also protect your cards against a Raigeki because it does say Dragon Monsters. So if multiple monsters would be destroyed on your field at one time, you can banish this to prevent that, which is really, really nice. Silver's Cry is really good because it allows me to interrupt my opponent's plays. If my opponent goes into end phase, they set a card or set 2, I activate Silver's Cry, banish one of their face downs before they get a chance to activate it. That's really, really good for me because Silver's Cry just brings back Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon of White. Even if I don't have a Dragon Spirit of White in the graveyard and I have it on the field, I can use its effect as long as my opponent controls a monster. And I would do Chainlink 1, use this card's effect, tribute itself, and then Chainlink 2, use Silver's Cry. I would special summon Blue Eyes White Dragon from my hand, and then I'd bring Spirit back and pop a back row on them. So you can do some pretty decent plays. You could set yourself up for rank 8 plays the next turn as well. These cards really do work well together. I love using this on my opponent's turn and this on my turn, and that's why I run 3 of each. And now for my one-ofs, I run 1 Raigeki, just because of this format. If I go up against Extra Deck Monarchs and I could draw this, it is amazing. I love to pull this out. If I get up against BAs, this is a little tougher, but if I can Raigeki with something like Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon on the field, I can pretty much negate their graveyard effects if I wanted to. So Raigeki is still pretty decent. The only thing it doesn't really stop as much as Cosmo, but I can negate graveyard effects again with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, so it is pretty useful. I run 1 Soul Charge because if I open this card up and I'm able to bring out 1 Spirit Dragon on my turn before I use this card, I can pretty much guarantee I will lock my opponent out of their deck and I will have game because of the combos you can do with the Extra Deck and the amount of times you can bring cards back in addition to Soul Charge, because if you open this up first turn, you're not getting a battle phase anyway, so it's absolutely great to open up first turn. I run 1 Upstart Goblin just because it's an easy side out, and if I draw that, I can ditch it with something like Melody of the Awakening Dragon, and then add 2 Blue Eyes to hand, and I don't lose an actual usable card. I'm literally just using space filler, and I don't even have to use its effect to draw then. I can draw more if I wanted to. If I'm bricking and I need to draw another card, drawing Upstart's not too bad. It just basically allows you to get to your combo pieces quicker. I also run 1 Foolish Burial, just because if I get this to hand, I can pretty much guarantee that I'll have a Blue Eyes to hand, as long as I have a White Stone of Legend in deck, because I Foolish Burial, send White Stone of Legend to the graveyard, add Blue Eyes White Dragon to hand, or I can use it to set up my end phase plays by sending White Stone of Ancients. It is not that bad, and if, I really don't have any cards in hand, I can send a Blue Eyes White Dragon to the graveyard and then bring it back with something like Return of the Dragon Lords or Silver's Cry if I really need to. I also run 1 Twin Twister because if your opponent uses Vanity's Emptiness on you, you actually lose. This is 1 card that locks Blue Eyes out amazingly. I don't know how I would get around this if I didn't run Twin Twister and Raigeki, because these cards just destroy cards on my opponent's side of the field. But if I wasn't running these 2 cards, which most Blue Eyes decks don't, if my opponent flips Vanity's Emptiness, I fucking lose. I also like to consider running 2 Gozen Match. I'm not too sure how it works this format. I think it would be pretty decent because most of the format is light and dark and not just light. Gozen Match is not too bad, but I just haven't ran it specifically in my actual deck. I've been net deck testing it for a while and it actually runs pretty decent. So that's a card you can put in if you want to take out something like Foolish Burial and Upstart. You could definitely put in 2 Gozen Match. And now onto the extra deck. I play Technically speaking, these are 16 cards, but I'm going to show you 2 cards that are basically interchangeable. I run 1 Blue Eyes Twin Burst because it's a great out to Cosmo. If my opponent has a card that's amazingly big and I can't get rid of it, this card banishes any card that it attacks and doesn't get destroyed by battle. It'll banish that card instead, which is really nice. This can't be destroyed by battle either. It can make up to 2 attacks on monsters in the battle phase as well, so that works really well for me. I play 2 Spirit Dragon. Some people I see playing 3. I like the idea of having 3 in the deck, but it actually just seems like you go into the same play continuously and you don't think out of it. What I actually like to do to lock my opponent out if they got rid of my Spirit Dragon one turn is to save this for a late game and instead go into something like Cloud Castle, and when this card is synchro summoned, I can special summon a level 9 monster from my graveyard, which is Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. So you don't get the tag out effect, but you still get to negate effects in graveyard, and you get to stop any special summon that's 2 monsters or more, which is actually really nice. This can actually stop Break Swords as well, which I didn't think about because Break Sword special summons 2 cards back. So if they don't pop this with Break Sword, and Break Sword pops itself and then pops another card in your field while you still have Spirit Dragon, you can stop the special summon Phantom Knights from graveyard because that's 2 monsters. You can only basically special summon 1 monster whilst this card is face up on the field. This card's graveyard negation stops Cosmo really hard. It stops BA really hard, and I really like the way it's been working out for me. It even stops the water matchup if you can get this out first. If you can't get this out though, you pretty much lose the water matchup because water outpaces my deck so much sometimes. I also run 2 Azure Eyes Silver Dragon because if my opponent targets Blue Eyes for destruction and I want to bring back Blue Eyes on my turn, I just go into this card. It can't be targeted by card effects until the end of the next turn. So I can tag out into this. In my standby phase, I'll special summon another Blue Eyes because technically speaking, this is a normal monster in graveyard and so is regular Blue Eyes, obviously. So I can actually special summon this on my standby phase, banish one of my opponent's spells and traps, and then keep going from there. It's actually a really nice card to use. And now onto my XYZ monsters that I run. I run 1 Alsai, the Sylvan High Protector. He is pretty decent. He's a rank 8, 3200 defense, so you can bring this out against Blue Eyes unless they could pop your monster with something like Alternative. They can't swing over it, which is nice. Its effect is you basically mill the top card off your deck. You guess it wrong intentionally. It requires you to guess what card it is. If you were to guess it right, you'd add it to hand. You guess it wrong, the card gets sent to the graveyard, and then Alsai's effect activates where you detach a material and then you could put 1 card from your opponent's side of the field to the top or bottom of their deck. You can actually use this to lock your opponent out. Let's say they just normal summoned Edea and that was the end of the turn because they didn't have any other plays. They didn't have Edeos in deck to special summon. You can use this card's effect to put Edea on the top of their deck and force them to basically brick again the next turn, and then you can do it the turn after that as well. I run 1 Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy just to stop my opponent's spells. This helps lock your opponent out. If you can bring this out and Crystal Wing, you can pretty much guarantee game because they can't Raigeki you stop it. Unless they draw Dark Hole and Raigeki, you pretty much have game. Because there's no way they're getting rid of this, because if they try and pop this card, you use Crystal Wing to stop it, and if they try and Dark Hole or Raigeki Crystal Wing, you stop it with this card. And for the Galaxy Eyes combo, you can run 1 of 2 cards to start it up. You can do Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon, or you can do Galaxy Eyes Tachyon. I'm a bigger fan of Tachyon because it's useful on its own. You don't need it to go into Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter. This card is great on its own, and I'll show you why in a second. This card is basically the cheaper alternative to this, and it's a 4K beat stick. But this card's effect, I think, is way better than Prime Photons. Galaxy Eyes Tachyon's effect is at the start of the battle phase, you'll detach a material and negate all other face-up monsters' effects, which is actually really good. And then for any other effect that resolves whilst this card is face-up on the field and during the battle phase, this will gain 1000 attack, and this can make up to 2 attacks in the battle phase. So basically, if you attack something like Dante, your opponent's going to resolve 2 cards. So they're basically going to make this a 5k beater, and then if you have any other card on the field, you just attack with it, and then you attack with this after, and you'll do 5k damage. Technically, they can tag out if they have something like a Farm Girl or a Tin Can, because those cards banish as cost and then resolve in the banished zone, so their effects would go through and give them the attack boost. Then they could summon something like Dark Destroyer and just pop it. So that kind of sucks, but against BA, this card is absolutely gold. I really love this card pulling out against BA. The next card in the Galaxy Eyes combo you go up into is Full Armor Photon, because basically, after you attack twice in the battle phase and you negated most of your opponent's on-field effects, you overlay Full Armor Photon on top of Galaxy Eyes Tachyon, and then you pop a card your opponent controls by detaching material, and then you can summon Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon on top of the other 2. You can use this card's effect when it's summoned to send 3 dragons from your deck to the graveyard. I send White Stone of Legend, White Stone of Ancients, and usually just any of the Blue Eyes, not alternative, but I'll send Blue Eyes White Dragon or Dragon Spirit of White, and then I get their effects. I get the special summon in the end phase, and I get a Blue Eyes White Dragon to hand, and then my opponent has to banish 3 cards from their deck. If you can bring this out late game, you can basically guarantee your opponent won't have monsters in their deck, especially if they're playing something like Cosmo, and that kind of sucks for them. It banishes 3 cards, so as long as you can guarantee a Cosmo Town is not on the field, which is really easy with Dragon Spirit of White, because you just summon Dragon Spirit of White and banish Cosmo Town, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to lock Cosmo out late game if you bring this card out, because they love to dish cards to the graveyard. They won't have cards in their deck to do pretty much anything else with. And now onto the Synchro monsters that I play in Blue Eyes to bring out with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. I play one Ancient Fairy Dragon for the play that I mentioned before, because this card pretty much guarantees you get into a Crystal Wing. I also play Black Rose Moonlight because it allows me to bounce my opponent's cards on summon, and then if I keep it on the field by banishing something like Return of the Dragon Lords, which can protect it, then I can bounce cards every time they special summon something level 5 or higher, which is pretty decent. I can pretty much get rid of any monarchs I want with this card. I love it. You can also use it to go into something like Crystal Wing, but it's really hard to do it. It's way easier to do it with something like Ancient Fairy Dragon. I also play one Michael the Arch Lightsworn. You can use him to go into Crystal Wing as well if you really wanted to, but it's a lot tougher to do it with these two cards. I use his effect to basically banish one card in the field, usually banishing a Cosmo Town or something similar. I then play one Stardust Spark because it allows me to protect my cards, and I play one Crystal Wing because it's pretty much the best dragon in the game right now. Its effects are absolutely broken. The fact that it has a built-in Honest effect and built-in Monster Negation effect is absolutely nuts. There's nothing I would rather play, or nothing I would rather open against Cosmo than Crystal Wing, as long as they don't basically try and Book of Moon it and then tag out with something like Good Witch. I'm pretty much set and they can't do anything because I have this card on the field. And if you didn't know, you can bring all these cards back with Return of the Dragon Lords, which is why I love to run them too, because I can let them get popped and then on my next turn special summon them again. If my opponent has 2 monarchs on the field or level 8 monsters that I can't get over, I can Black Rose Moonlight on one turn, let it die, and then bring it back the next turn for the same effect because its effect is on summon as well, and then just pop all their cards back to hand and make them pretty much useless. I could also use Black Rose Moonlight to pop back other Synchro cards that I don't like on my opponent's side of the field, and then let it die in my end phase, and then bring it back with Return of the Dragon Lords, and then if they try and kill it later, I can banish Return of the Dragon Lords to save it, or I can bring back a Crystal Wing from turn 1 with Return of the Dragon Lords turn 2, and my opponent just has to redo it all again, and if they try and destroy Crystal Wing again with something like Dark Polar Raigeki, I just banish Return of the Dragon Lords. And I think that's it for this video, guys. I was trying to be pretty comprehensive because the deck's a little new. If you have any questions or suggestions, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments down below. The deck is probably going to change a little bit in the future when the Dark Illusion releases with cards like Pot Desires and stuff like that. I'll probably make an updated video around then. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to follow me on Twitter @Schwabs or like my Facebook page to see when I post these videos. And if you really liked it, don't forget to click subscribe because it's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.